What's going on, Ravens fans? Welcome into a Week 16 edition of Ravens Unscripted. We hope you enjoyed your mini bye week, rested for a big matchup here in Week 16 against the Cleveland Browns. A lot on the line, a #1 seed right there in the Ravens' grass. So plenty to get into on the couch here. We've got Garrett and Cliff and John Eisenberg. It's an all Ravens media couch. Should be fun. Fellas, good to be with you. And we'll start with 4 downs. So I mentioned it, 2 games left, Week 16, Garrett. The obvious carrot out there is that #1 seed. But big picture, when you look at these final 2 games, how do you see it playing out? How would you like it to play out?
Well, I think I'd like to play out the way the Ravens team and fans would like to play out, which is beating the Browns on Sunday, locking up that #1 overall seed, and then going into Week 17, where you basically have a 2-week bye because you don't need to really play guys in Week 17 if that's what the Ravens would ultimately decide to do. I love the attitude of this Ravens team. They win the AFC North on Thursday Night Football against the Jets. But when you walked into the locker room, sure, there was excitement. Guys were fired up. They put the hat on. They put the T-shirt on. But there was no sense of, finality there. There was no sense of that they had really, completed the mission in terms of what they want to do. Everybody was talking about this is the first step. This is the first thing that they wanted to do. So I think that this team, really over the past month, it's become crystal clear that they've got bigger goals in mind than just making the playoffs, just winning the division. The next thing on that checklist is getting the #1 overall seed, and I would expect for that to happen on Sunday.
Yeah, how often are you in this position, not only to get the #1 seed, but maybe to have Week 17 where you don't have to play someone who might have a nagging injury or who you want to get some rest? I mean, it's very rare that you can be in this position where you can really control things to that degree. Health is so important at this time of year, and the Ravens, if they can win this game Sunday, put themselves in a position where they can really dictate how much they want to play guys, get totally ready for the playoffs, and be healthy going into it.
It's amazing, isn't it? I mean, how many years have we sat here and thought about, well, if they win and the Steelers lose and the Browns and there's a tie, maybe we have a shot at it, But so it is very simple, and I see no reason. I mean, the Ravens give, they show no reason to think that they're going to do anything other than show up to play Sunday and play well and win the ball game. I mean, I think at this point, they got a lot more going for them than the Browns do.
It's incredible to see the level of angst to be so much lower than previous years, but the urgency still there for all these obvious reasons. So 2nd down, normally we talk about Lamar Jackson. Can't do that right now. There's no game to break down that he's starting, but there is a history with this team this year that I think whenever the story is written on this team, whether it's after Super Bowl, that Week 4 game against Cleveland, I think, is the hinge point. So, John, I'll start with you. Where is this team most different after that 40-25 embarrassing loss at home against the Browns?
Well, a memorable game for sure, and the easy answer is the defense is different. I would look at the offense, though. I will take that point. If you go back and look at the stats there, Lamar, he threw 3 touchdowns that day, also 2 interceptions. I think the Ravens at that point in the season, and that's the quarter pole, were still trying to figure themselves out offensively. The offense that we've come to know was not there yet. I mean, they'd had that great opening game against Miami, but that was it. So I think offensively in the last 10 games, because it's 10 games since then, that's the biggest change in this team.
The offense is, I think everyone points to the defense, and that's where I'll go. I would point to the defense because over that 10-game stretch, the Ravens have been the best defense in the NFL, and I think that has sort of been an underreported, underdiscussed storyline for their success. So much of the conversation is dominated by Lamar Jackson and the offense, rightfully so, but the defense has been playing incredibly well. What has changed with that defense? I think it's the addition of some of these guys off the street. Josh Bynes, L.J. Fort, Domata Petco, Jihad Ward, Chuck Clark going into the starting lineup was something that, the defense has all those things.
Marcus
Peters, yeah. I mean, Peters and Clark didn't come off the street, but those are 2 guys that are playing at a really high level. So I just think it's the influx of some of these new players into the starting lineup on defense. It's made a massive difference for this group, and they are playing at such a high level right now.
Yeah, I mean, one of the storylines going into the season was how would the Ravens adjust to losing so many big faces on defense, Suggs, Weddle, C.J. Mosley, Darius Smith. I just think it took time. Wink and the players really deserve a lot of credit for looking like a defense that has played together for a long time that really hasn't. And now they seem to be hitting their stride at the right time.
All right, so the Cleveland Browns in that game, it was probably the peak of their season, just the way they looked and obviously what their record. And this was a team, guys, that was talked about and hyped up for obvious reasons, what they brought in. they still have those players, Cliff, for the most part. So the talent is still there. They haven't shown it in recent weeks. But what scares you about Cleveland, and what version do you think you'll get, or this team will get on Sunday?
Well, I don't know, and I think more importantly, the Browns never know either. So we'll see. But they're dangerous and talented. To me, sure, you can say the easy, well, they're down. The season might be over for them. They don't have a lot to play for, maybe. But it's still, I mean, they want to beat the Ravens. I mean, to get some of the nastiness out of their mouth about this season, sweeping the Ravens, that's all they can do now is try and win these last 2 games. And when you have that kind of talent, don't let Baker Mayfield, to me, get comfortable in this game, because the more comfortable he gets, the more dangerous they become.
Yeah, I mean, what's dangerous about them? Yeah, as Cliff said, I mean, they're talented. They are really talented. And so, to me, they're scary. I mean, that first game, it looked like a bad matchup for the Ravens. I mean, it really did. And so much has changed, as Garrett alluded to, in the defense. But, you know, their offense looked like, boy, it's fast, it's quick. The Ravens couldn't stop the run that day. That's really what happened. They could not stop the run. They're doing a better job of that now. Chubb is a great running back. So, you know, I find him dangerous. And, you know, personally, I'm glad to see these late season losses. Get them out of the picture. Do you want them coming in here in the playoffs? No. You know, I mean, they're a weird team and stuff's going on with them, but very talented team.
All right, Garrett, we'll start with you on predictions. You can give a score, who you think's going to win, and maybe something you think is going to be impactful in this game.
I think that the Ravens will start fast and take care of business. I think it's going to be a sort of a business-like game for the Ravens. I expect Mark Ingram to get a heavy dose of the workload. He's nearing 1,000 yards. He's at 963 right now. I think he'll cross that 1,000-yard mark for the season. And I think the Ravens win this game going away. And like I said, kind of a business-like atmosphere today or on Sunday.
Yeah, I agree with Garrett. You know, Lamar had 2 interceptions that first game. He's, for the most part, taking good care of the football. I don't expect that to happen again. The Browns had big plays in that game. The Ravens haven't been giving up big plays. And for a team that's had its foot on the pedal for 10 straight weeks, I just have a hard time seeing them when they see the light end of the tunnel. And I think getting this mini bye, having the weekend off is going to help them. I like the Ravens.
I'm feeling 31-16.
All right, I like it. John gave a
Specifics.
score.
That's all I got to say.
Ravens or Browns?
You could have flipped the scores. Look, a mini bye week, plenty of time for you guys to send out your thoughts on social media, and we're going to dive into it next with retweet or delete. Welcome back into the show. We're by the big board, so it probably means we're going to have some retweet or delete. Also, a telltale sign, these trusty props we have. So obviously the way this works, a tweet up on the big screen. The guys will say they agree, they endorse it with the little birdie, or disagree with the big red X. So first tweet up, I enjoyed this one from Howard. So he's talking about Terrell Suggs getting claimed. He was claimed by the Kansas City Chiefs. But if he were to choose to retire, which has been rumored, the Ravens should bring him to town to be the legend of the game for the first playoff game. M&T Bank Stadium would go nuts. So this would be a first, I think. What do we feel about this, fellas? We got a delete, a retweet, and a retweet. I'll go with the outlier.
He's not going to retire. He's going to go play for the Kansas City Chiefs. And if he's at M&T Bank Stadium, it's probably going to be in the AFC Championship playing for the Kansas City Chiefs.
Well, can he still be the legend of the game? Yeah. I mean, playing for the Chiefs and having got the shield.
That would definitely be a first.
Revolutionary. That's right. That's right.
I like it.
Yeah, okay. So why would this be a good idea? Let's say he doesn't go play
Let's say
for
the Chiefs get knocked out.
Yeah, there you go.
So, no, I just think it's a great idea to bring him back as a legend of the game. I think, and that would be a great opportunity. If he's available, I think it would be really good.
It would kind of fit with Suggs did everything his way, a little bit different. We all enjoyed it. This would fit with that, right, Cliff?
Yeah, Suggs still, to me, didn't get the true moment coming back as an opponent that he would get in whatever. So I'm sure it's going to come at some point that he'll get his due. I don't think it's going to happen this year.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think Suggs, we still need a Suggs full farewell where you can cheer for him not being the team, playing for the team opposite the Ravens.
It's a storyline to follow. All right, next tweet. Ronnie Stanley, this is from PFF, who's the all-seeing eye of statistics and analytics. Ronnie Stanley's having the best left tackle season since ... ever. So I guess they're saying the best season ever. Yeah, I'm with you guys, delete. Jonathan Ogden probably had some pretty good seasons. Yeah. You're our resident historian, at least on this set. Ever, John?
Yeah, Ever's the problem here. Ronnie Stanley's having a great season. You know, his best season by far, and he's key to a lot of stuff that's happening with this offense. But the Ever is like there. How many left tackles are in the Hall of Fame?
Yeah.
I mean, and they had a lot of good years, believe me. And yes,
Well,
Jonathan Ogden, you mentioned, stop right there. So I just don't like Ever. I don't like that.
Yeah.
Take Ronnie out of it. I just don't like
Were
that.
there
Ever.
analytics to back this up, Garrett?
Yeah, basically, as a pass blocker, he's thriving. He's having the best left tackle season in the NFL. He's having his best season ever.
Yeah.
But to back that up, I think that looking at those numbers, it's too far of a stretch. Jonathan Ogden, Anthony Munoz, you can go down the list of left tackles. Ugh.
Anything else here?
Well, I think, though, as we mentioned, not to belittle what Ronnie's done here, I think the important thing for the Ravens is that he has become what they hoped for and more. And I think maybe a couple of years ago, you weren't sure if that was going to happen. Now everyone's all in on Ronnie Stanley. He looks like he's going to have a long, great career.
Don't worry, he's stamped this tweet and it'll be part of the contract negotiations. Next up, from Ebony Bird, the 2019 AFC North champs are the best Ravens team ever. So we're diving into history here. So what do we think? A retweet and a delete. So I think I'm going to agree with you guys. So let's see why this, I mean, other than result. Look, we don't know how this year's going to finish, but why right now are you not comfortable with it?
Because again, the result I can't crown it before it's happened. I can't crown them yet. I mean, having the best regular season ever, which I think is hugely important for what they can do to top it off as the best season ever. If they top this off with a Super Bowl, then yes, I would agree with this. But the biggest games, as John Harbaugh often says, the more you win, the bigger the games get. Their biggest games, if you have to be played, they've got to finish the job.
There's a lot of times that the best team in the NFL doesn't win the Super Bowl. I actually think the 2011 Ravens were better than the 2012 Ravens, even though that 2012 team was obviously the one that won the Super Bowl. When I look at this year's team, they've got the MVP, they've got the best offense in the league, they're the most exciting team. You compare that over the course of Ravens history, this is the best Ravens team that we've seen.
They have balance, too. I mean,
they have a great defense.
Balance.
They've got a great defense, too. So I just think, we're going to have to wait and see if they win the Super Bowl.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You don't know how it's going to end, but watching this team play week after week as this season has unfolded, to me, and I've been watching them since '96, this is the best team.
And
obliterating people week after great teams. This has never happened before.
Those Super Bowl teams had that big lull that was great for the story when you look back at it. When obviously they were just kicking field goals to win. And then when they had to do what they did in San Diego a few years ago, obviously, unless something happens the last 2 weeks, I mean, really the only thing is the Cleveland-Kansas City game, and that's not a big stretch.
Like the 2000 team had the best defense ever, but they went through, 5 games without a touchdown?
Yeah.
The 2012 team had the great story. The Ray Lewis comes back, but they went through a tough period. They fired the offensive coordinator in the middle of that season, and they end up winning it. But when you look at the entire body of work, the quality on the offense and the quality of the defense, this Ravens team is the best that we've seen.
Never been this dominant. Never been this dominant week after week for the whole season.
John, you feel like this team would, the 2000 Ravens team would handle this team, or would not handle this team?
That would be fun.
That would be a really good game. I think, you know what? I think Lamar Jackson right now is so good that I think that 2000 defense, and boy, we'll start an argument with this.
Yeah.
But I think they might have their hands full a little bit.
You should send that tweet out, and we'll put it up on the show.
Yeah, that's a great argument. We could do a whole show on that.
Send it to Ray Lewis. Tony Siragusa.
Be a great game.
Keep an eye out for that on
Good question,
BaltimoreRavens.com.
Very good.
All right, well, stick with us. More Unscripted coming up. This is an interactive show. We always want to hear from you. So time for some Ravens Mailbag. Make sure to tweet us your question using the hashtag Ravens Mailbag, and our experts will give you their thoughts. First up, this is for Garrett. If the Ravens were to beat Cleveland, do you think they will rest the starters versus Pittsburgh? This is something we've talked about a lot.
Yeah, I've actually kind of gone the other way on this one. Initially, I thought no. I thought they would play in maybe the first half like a preseason game. Now I think that they would rest the starters, Lamar Jackson and the veteran players on this team like Marshall Yanda, Earl Thomas. Obviously, you can't rest everybody. You don't have a 90-man roster like you do in the preseason. But I just feel like going into that Week 17 game, I don't worry about the Ravens getting rusty. I don't think that Lamar Jackson would get rusty. He sat for the final 2 weeks of the preseason. It came out and hung 59 points. on the Dolphins in week 1. So I just think that the risk reward would lean towards resting those guys in the final week of the regular season.
All right, let's keep this conversation going, John. And I'm of the belief that if you're going to do it, sink into it and really sit these guys. Don't start the game with them. But what would be the reason to play Lamar Jackson in Week 17 if, in theory, he's locked up the MVP, we know they've clinched the North, and he has already broke the rushing record?
Well, there is a reason. Now, I happen to agree with Garrett as you've evolved on this. You know, I feel like I would rest him. I would rest him. However, there is a reason to keep playing him, and the reason is this is the mindset the Ravens have had all year, which is aggressiveness, pedal to the metal. I mean, have they let up on anything all year? The players have called out Harbaugh occasionally. You know, it's like, you know, what are we? You know, come on, let's keep going, run up the score, that type of stuff. You take your foot off the pedal with that. So that mindset has so worked for this team this year that, you know, there's a little, you could say, I worry about taking your foot off the pedal. That doesn't, you know, they still be great in the playoffs, but that's the reason, is to keep your foot on the pedal.
Yeah, and Lamar has gotten plenty of rest because he hasn't had to play in a number of fourth quarters.
He takes off these fourth quarters.
In recent weeks. All right, Cliff, we saved you the future question, if you will. What positions do you think the Ravens will give their most attention to this offseason, draft and free agency?
Well, pass rush is the first thing that comes to mind with Judon and pending free agent. And also, you can't have too many pass rushers, so obviously that'll get some attention. Maybe cornerback, too. We don't know what's going to happen with Marcus Peters, Jimmy Smith, and another position where you can't have too many. So I would start with those two that, you know, I think there's going to be questions going into offseason about, can the Ravens add some more pass rushers, corners? Are they going to have a secondary as good next year as it is this year, which to me, it is the best secondary in the NFL. So those are two spots I would look at.
All right, we're not sitting out Mailbag no matter the results here the final 2 weeks. So keep those questions coming using the hashtag RavensMailbag. Coming up next on Unscripted, the guys step up on the Soapbox. Getting ready to close out the show, so we have to allow our couch to hit the soapbox and opine, fellas, about something you think about this team after 14 games and obviously heading into a big matchup Sunday against the Browns. Cliff, the weather could be an issue in Cleveland, but I have a feeling that's no problem for one Lamar Jackson, according to you. 30 seconds, here we go.
Yeah, I'm a little tired of hearing about how Lamar is not a bad weather quarterback or how much the weather affects him. Weather affects all quarterbacks. Those games against San Francisco and the one up in Buffalo, both quarterbacks were affected. And sure, he's going to feel it, but if the playoffs are played in bad weather, I'm not worried about Lamar Jackson coping with it. He's done a great job taking care of the
10
football,
seconds.
his throwing accuracy. If you can't throw the football if it's too windy, what better quarterback to have than the best running quarterback in football? So don't worry about the weather. Lamar can handle it.
Oh, hitting the post, too. You know what, in all seriousness, the way I view this, I think because there's still such a microscope on his ability to be accurate that people want to still find a way to help that argument, and weather has at times offered it.
Yeah, I mean, it's always the next thing, it seems like Lamar. Like, he answers
Yeah.
one question, there's always a question to follow. The test is never over. So sure, I mean, I would think that a guy from Florida and any quarterback would love it to be a nice day when they take the field.
And lastly, and this is what I love about Lamar, he's honest about the fact that he doesn't necessarily like it. Most quarterbacks who probably privately are complaining about the temperature, the wind, the rain, they're like, oh, no, I'm good. Right. But Lamar, because he's honest, and that's what we love about him. All right, John, you're up next, man.
All right.
3, 2, and 1.
Well, we're coming to the end of a disappointing season for the Cleveland Browns. We all know that. We've been talking about it. And so this game Sunday, I think, is this is their Super Bowl, a chance to sweep the Ravens, who may be going to the real Super Bowl. So you're going to hear this game's more important to the Cleveland Browns than the Ravens, who are going to have important games to play in January. But I'm not buying that. And not just for reasons of seeding, whatever. This is a huge game for the Ravens. They got their rears kicked the first time they played the Cleveland Browns. And let me tell you, football players, this is how they think. They want revenge. They want to go into Cleveland. They want to win. They want to win by a lot. I think this is a big game for the Ravens that way.
All right.
I agree with John. I think that loss in Week 4, John, is going to be fresh in their minds on Sunday, and they're going to be motivated beyond just playoff seeding or anything like that.
I was thinking about this week, getting ready for the show. How much, because John's the ultimate motivator in finding ways to,
This John?
How much, he motivates us all. How much do you think John Harbaugh will show this team, not just for the schematic reasons, just bad plays to kind of continue to twist that knife?
Well, that would work. That would work. The only tricky part of this whole thing is how many guys on the defense were not here. They weren't here. It's like, Marcus Peters, he could say, well, that guy wouldn't have caught that if I was here.
That's a great point.
So, but he may do that, though. That's an interesting thought.
There's still some evidence. All right, close this out, Garrett.
Well, you did a nice segue for me, Evan. You
Okay.
talked about John Harbaugh
That's right.
being a master motivator, and I think that he should absolutely be the NFL's Coach of the Year. When you look around the league, what the Ravens have done is second to none. They have the best record in football. They're the best team in football, and John Harbaugh is the leader of this team. I think he deserves a lot of credit for the transformation that they went through during the offseason. They went all in on Lamar Jackson, and there were people kind of chuckling and laughing and saying, all this talk about changing the NFL, changing offenses, that's not going to happen. Well, it has happened, and John Harbaugh is a huge reason for that. I know there's other great coaches, but he absolutely deserves to be the Coach of the Year.
I think it's the model, guys. I think, and we've talked about it before, and it's not like a new statement, but just that if you're going to be a head coach, the CEO approach to me is the best way to do it.
Yeah, I mean, John, he's been one of the best coaches in the NFL ever since he got the job. To me, I mean, the same people complain about John, the same people complain about Mike Tomlin. I've been saying
Yeah,
that
but
for
Tomlin's the other guy that is in this mix, who's done a great job. But I just think the reason I give John the nod over Tomlin is that higher ceiling, and they went all in on an unconventional method, and they have succeeded at a level that nobody else has.
Well, that'll do it for us here on Unscripted. Enjoy the game, everybody, and maybe next week we're talking about a bye week and a #1 seed. We'll see you right back here on the couch next week.